In 1661, a man threw a party so expensive that reality noticed. There were fireworks, there were fountains, there were plates that probably had their own servants. 17,000 guests arrived, ate, stared, and silently understood something was wrong. Not morally wrong, socially wrong. Why is this guy richer than the king wrong? 3 weeks later, the party guy was arrested and sent to prison for the rest of his life. Not because the party was illegal, but because it was too confident. History lesson over. Mental illness begins now. Because this story keeps happening, just with fewer fireworks and more Excel sheets. Most people think money works like this. You save it, it grows. Eventually, it solves your life. This is false. Money actually works like a badly balanced video game with invisible level-ups. Below certain levels, money behaves like a scared animal. Above certain levels, money behaves like an unpaid intern that never sleeps. Most people never notice when the rules change. They keep playing level 1 strategies in level 4 zones. This video exists so you stop wondering why you did everything right and still feel broke, anxious, or weirdly tired all the time. By the end, you won't feel richer, but you will feel less confused, which is step 1. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Below the first threshold, money does not work for you. It watches you. It judges your groceries. It panics when you open delivery apps. It flinches every time you say, "It's just one purchase." At this stage, money is defensive. It is not growing. It is hiding. You can invest it, you can spreadsheet it, you can put it in beautiful apps with charts. It will still move like molasses with anxiety. This is why compound interest feels fake early on. Technically, it works. Emotionally, it does nothing. $10,000 makes $800 a year. That's not wealth. That's a phone bill with opinions. You don't change behavior. You don't feel momentum. You don't feel safe. You just feel like you're waiting for something that isn't happening yet. That feeling is not failure. It's the design. Here's where most people break. They save, they invest, they wait. Nothing happens. So they conclude the system is a lie. They buy a better car. They upgrade their lifestyle. They tell themselves they'll start later. Later becomes never. The irony is cruel. The hardest part of wealth is the part where it looks fake. The first threshold doesn't reward effort. It punishes impatience. This is why 90% of people quit before the game actually starts. Not because they are lazy, because the feedback loop is broken. The system asks for years of discipline before showing proof. Humans hate that. Imagine filling a swimming pool with a garden hose. Hour 1, wet floor. Hour 2, suspicious puddle. Hour 3, regret. Nothing looks different. This is the first threshold. The pool is wide. The water spreads thin. Progress evaporates emotionally before it evaporates physically. Then, without warning, the pool gets depth. Suddenly, every drop counts. The hose didn't change. Your perception did. Money behaves the same way. Once you cross roughly $100,000 in investable assets, the illusion breaks. Not because you're rich, but because growth becomes visible. 8% of $100,000 is $8,000 a year. That's no longer theoretical. That's rent energy. That's decision-changing energy. Money stops whispering. It clears its throat. This is where the twist happens. The real shift at $100,000 is not mathematical. It's psychological. Your job stops feeling like oxygen. Your boss stops feeling like a god. Your fear volume drops by maybe 12%. That sounds small. It's enormous. Fear controls decision-making below the first threshold. Above it, you hesitate less. You negotiate differently. You tolerate less nonsense. You stop saying yes out of panic. You're not free, but the leash loosens.
Now the game speeds up. The second threshold appears quietly. At around $500,000, money stops being savings and becomes structure. At this level, money doesn't just grow, it protects. You could lose your job and not collapse immediately. You could say no without calculating how many weeks of ramen you have left. This is called walkaway power, and it terrifies systems built on desperation. Here's the irony. People reach this level and still feel poor. Why? Because they didn't update their identity. They still think like someone who can't afford mistakes. So when markets dip, they panic. They sell at the worst moment. They convert temporary drops into permanent damage. They had the money. They lacked the mental software. Then comes the final threshold, the one nobody explains honestly. Around $2.5 million, something unnatural happens. Money starts earning more than your time. This is the inversion point. Below it, time is king. Above it, time is inefficient. At this level, working harder often makes less sense than thinking slower. This is why wealthy people behave strangely. They're not lazy, they're responding to different math. But here's the trap. Most people who reach this point don't do it with salary. They do it with ownership, businesses, equity, assets that scale without permission. And this is where history repeats. People confuse money with power. They confuse confidence with immunity. They throw metaphorical parties. They forget that different levels require different behavior. That's how you end up rich and trapped, or rich and broke, or rich and invisible. The lesson isn't get rich. The lesson is know what level you're on. Because money doesn't punish stupidity. It punishes outdated strategies. The rules change quietly. The consequences don't. And now that you can see the levels, you'll start noticing how many people are playing the wrong game with perfect confidence. Which is funny, until it isn't.